Cosplay has become a worldwide phenomenon. Some call it an art form, others may not agree with that nice of a statement. No matter your opinion, it is an undeniable fact that cosplay has become widespread across the world, garnering millions of people to anime conventions, cosplay gatherings, and competitions. But why? How did this all get started, and why is it so popular in today's society and media? Well, let's find out. The official term cosplay was coined in 1984 by manga artist Nobuyuki Takahashi after attending Worldcon in Los Angeles, California. He used the term, combining costume and play, in some of his works during 1983 and 1984. Now, many people believe that cosplay originated in Japan, and while Japan coined the term, and while Japan is where many sources of cosplay come from, it may shock you to know that the first cosplay on record was not from Japan, but from America. Now, the earliest picture we have of someone in cosplay is this picture of Margaret Rebecca Douglas Smith Gray Nolan and her partner at the time. They both attended Nikon and cosplayed based on magazine artwork by Frank R. Paul. Apparently, they were the only people to show up in costumes, but that changed as year after year, people slowly began to appear in costumes. Now, cosplay could have appeared earlier than this in another country, but the earliest photo proof we have is this. Throughout the years, even up until the 90s, conventions and cosplay continued to grow, but not at an exponential rate by any means. With a lack of access to products such as foam and specific fabrics, cosplay was difficult to produce, but by no means impossible. Out of this time of bare bones came Yaya Han, arguably one of the most successful cosplayers ever. It's her job, she gets paid to do it, and she travels the world to do it. I've actually been able to meet Yaya Han and listen to her talk, and she has told some really funny stories of her time in the 90s cosplaying. She's talked about how limited wigs were, how foam was not easy to find, and floor mats were what were used, how a lot of times fabric had to be dyed or outsourced. But that was 30 years ago. How have we come so far in 30 years? Well, it's all thanks to the cosplay boom. The cosplay boom began sometime between the 90s and early 2000s. It was around this time people began taking a large interest in cosplay and anime. Anime at this time became extremely popular. Amazon began carrying cosplay. YouTube was filled to the brim with tutorials by some of today's greats like Yaya Han, Kinpatsu Cosplay, Cowbutt Crunchies, and Kamui Cosplay, as well as many others. The World Cosplay Summit and many other Cosplay World Championships were also formed during this time. And once there was a demand for cosplay, shops dedicated to cosplay opened up. EVA foam became accessible, fabric stores began carrying fabrics specifically for cosplay, books were written about cosplay, and some argue that the cosplay boom is still going on today and reached its peak during the pandemic. Out of all times for cosplay, which is in and of itself a social hobby, why did it explode during the pandemic when no one could go outside? Well, that's because it was accessible, fun, and allowed people something to do within the comfort of their own homes. Because of the pandemic, people flooded to show off their cosplay online, and in return, the world was exposed to hundreds upon hundreds of cosplay videos, which in turn got even more people into cosplay. And even though cosplay had to take a break in the real world as conventions were shut down and social gatherings were not permitted, it was at its peak online. In the past 5 years alone, many shops dedicated to cosplay have opened. Fabric stores now carry fabrics specifically for cosplay, most notably Yaya Han's cosplay line. Books can be found out about how to do certain cosplay techniques, and it is evident that the cosplay boom is still in full swing in 2023. But how come you never see cosplay in your day-to-day life if it's so popular? Well, it can be found in a few specific places. Cosplay is most notably found at conventions, anime conventions, comic-cons, etc. And some may not even realize how popular they are. Most notably, there's Anime Expo, which takes place every year in California. This convention alone garners around 160,000 people per year, Where I'm from in America, other popular conventions include Anime Matsuri, A-Kon, and Anime Week in Atlanta, all which garner over 30,000 people annually. And to no one's surprise, those numbers are climbing every single year. Anime conventions can be found all over the world, no matter where you live. They happen in major cities and locations such as London, Nagoya, Japan, and New York, or smaller conventions can be found right in your backyard. No matter what convention you go to, a lot of them consist of the same things: idol festivals, cosplay competitions, the dealer's hall and artist alley, panels, voice actors and cosplay guests, and much, much more that all contribute to convention culture. But most notably, what you will see when you walk into a convention center is lots and lots and lots of cosplay. In fact, cosplay is so popular, it has outgrown the bounds of conventions altogether, and now has several world championships dedicated to the craft. Cosplay competitions are exactly what they sound like, a competition where people are judged based on the quality of the craftsmanship of their cosplay. There are typically 3 divisions: novice, journeyman, and master. Sometimes there are other divisions such as junior for children, an original design category, an eco-friendly category, or thrift category, things like that. Contestants usually have 30 seconds to walk on stage, strike a few poses, and get the heck off as the next cosplayer has to get on. Sometimes cosplayers do skits or dances, but most of the time it is just a simple walk-on for craftsmanship purposes. These competitions can be at small local conventions and may only have a few dozen people. However, world championships like Narcon, the C2E2 Crown of Cosplay, and GCOF fly out competitors from all over the world to compete, and only the best of the best are chosen from each country. Cosplay competitions were a thing in the 80s and 90s, but kept on growing, and came to its peak in 2003 when the World Cosplay Summit was founded. The World Cosplay Summit is the premier cosplay event every year. It takes place once a year, every year, in Nagoya, Japan, and around 30 countries compete annually, making it the largest in the world. In 2003, it began with 5 cosplayers from 3 countries. By 2006, it had 22 cosplayers from 9 countries. By 2015, 28 countries or regions were competing, and today, 34 regions currently compete in the World Cosplay Summit.
Team Saudi Arabia, Team Canada, Team Colombia, Team Latvia, Team UK, Team Germany, Team Japan.
If you win this competition, you are the World Cosplay Champion for that year. Every competitor must cosplay from some Japanese anime or manga, it must consist of a duo, and along with this, every single duo must perform a unique skit. There are tons of other rules and regulations, but I'm not going to get into that right now because it's a pretty long list. It is an amazing honor to even be invited to the World Cosplay Summit, and even more so to place. Placing in a competition can mean something as small as a free badge, or something as large as a few $1,000s. Cosplay competitions take a lot of time. Making your outfit can take months, prejudging, and the competition can take up most of your day. You usually have to spend a fair amount of money to make the cosplay and actually get into the convention. Plus, you have to actually make the time to sign up for a slot. It takes a lot of hard work and patience. And while several aspects of cosplay don't have championships, like the World Cosplay Championships, they may have large cult followings, such as idol festivals or maid cafes. Maid cafes are exactly what they sound like. They are cafes where you are served by maids, and recently they've become pretty mainstream in conventions, but I've also seen them as standalone or pop-ups, specifically in Japan and on the coasts of the United States. And I would argue that idol festivals are just as large as cosplay competitions and have just as large of a following. In idol festivals, individuals dress up in an idol persona, be it their own or one from media, and dance and sing on stage. Many idols have stemmed from popular Japanese media such as Love Live, Vocaloid, Project Sekai, Ensemble Stars, and many more. Many conventions have even started having idol festivals, an hour or 2 long performance where idols take turns performing on stage in front of a crowd. The crowd usually has light sticks and chants along with the idol's music. I actually have several friends who are idols, some so popular that they've been invited to guest at conventions, and it's a lot of work from what I've heard. Idol festivals, just like the past two I've talked about, have gotten so popular, many times they don't happen at conventions anymore. Idol festivals have separated completely and have become their own form of entertainment. At least where I live in America, idol festivals weren't a thing 10 years ago, or if they were, no one was really doing it. Cosplay is a large part of idol festivals. Many idols make their own versions of the uniforms, some buy pre-existing cosplays and modify them. Heck, it's a challenge to even move around in cosplay, so the fact that so many idols can sing or dance in cosplay is amazing. But the question still stands. Why is cosplay so popular, and how has it transcended so many cultural barriers? Taking everything I've previously said into consideration, it's no surprise that cosplay is so popular. It can be competitive or casual. You can buy cosplay or make it. There are so many different facets of cosplay to explore and enjoy. I ended up asking a few of my fellow cosplay friends what cosplay means to them, why do they do it, what drives them, and here are some of the responses. I got a lot of different answers, but overall, here is the amalgamation of what people said. Cosplay is creativity, self-expression, and pure happiness. It allows a person to express themselves in a way they may not be able to do in their everyday life. It allows you to share your passion with the world. It allows you to create. It allows you to meet people with similar interests and create bonds. It allows you to step outside of yourself, even for just a few hours. In short, it is the purest form of happiness for the individual who wants to express their creativity and passions through a performance art. There is no doubt that cosplay is seen as nerdy, and the community can be very hateful, unfortunately, just like any other community. Racism, homophobia, fatphobia, ableism, and any other terrible thing that you can think of is there. Yes, there are awful people who expect you to take a character off the page when in reality that's not always possible. There are things that you can't change about your body or your skill level. I've seen cosplayers be bullied firsthand online and at conventions. Heck, I've been bullied firsthand for my hobby. However, allowing what started out as a simple hobby to flow and change into what it is today has created a huge space for such a diverse group of people. Cosplay brings so many people comfort and joy, and it easily has one of the biggest cult followings in the pop culture world. People have been able to bring their passions to this. Some people have made it their jobs. Some people just enjoy it every so often, and that's okay too. Cosplay has become such a large part of current media, it seems impossible for you to not scroll across it at least once in your life. Cosplay, a combination of the words costume and play, is just that, play. It allows the individual to step out of who they are and enter into a whole new world that is unlike anything you would ever find in real life, even if only for a few hours. Cosplay is popular because you don't need to speak the same language or even be in the same part of the world to experience it. You can be hundreds of miles apart and still see a cosplay online. You can show off techniques through cosplay that transcend language barriers. It has notably become a welcoming community. And I know I just said there's awful people in it, but that's 5% of the community. The other 95% is some of the most welcoming, loving, open-minded people you will ever find. Many cosplayers come to cosplay because they have awful things they have to deal with in their normal everyday life, like homophobia, fatphobia, xenophobia, racism, all this horrible stuff. But many cosplayers just love the costume part of it. They just want to have fun, and they will gladly accept and love anyone. Take this, for example. I've been competing since 2018. I stopped in 2020 and 2021 because of the pandemic. So I've really only been cosplaying competitively for about 3 to 4 years. When I started this hobby, I knew no one in the community besides my best friend who had gotten me into it. But since then, I've actually become friends and mutuals online with world champions. I've been able to interact with so many people in my area and build up so many mutual friendships over the years. Heck, I even hang out with a lot of people not even while we're in cosplay. And this is the same experience that hundreds, if not thousands of people around the world have. Cosplay, simply put, is a playful artistic expression and a social hobby. And in all honesty, who wouldn't want to do that? Doing something you love and having people who love the same thing interact with you sounds like a dream to most people with niche hobbies. The cosplay phenomenon, the cosplay boom, the love for cosplay is still ongoing, and considering it's only about 100 years old and it's got this much steam, I don't see it slowing down anytime soon. Hate it or love it, it is an undeniable fact that cosplay will continue to grow in the coming years. And everything that I've talked about previously is what makes it a phenomenon. The breaking of cultural barriers, the world championships, the countless events that take place all across the world that didn't exist 100 years ago, heck, even 50 years ago. Those were very few and far in between. A phenomenon is basically a situation that happened, and how it got there is very questionable, and that's exactly what cosplay is. How it became so huge in the past 100 years is still mind-boggling. But no matter what you believe about cosplay, if you like or dislike it, taking all facts into consideration, it truly is a phenomenon.